Hello and welcome to The Progress Theory, where we discuss how to implement scientific principles for optimizing human performance. I am Dr. Phil Price, and on today's episode, we are joined by football coach and adventure athlete Jamie Carr. Jamie has started the Nothing Ventured campaign, where he looks to complete the Marathon des Sables, which is a 6-day ultramarathon across the Sahara Desert, and also row solo across the Atlantic Ocean, all to raise around £50,000 for children's charities. In this episode, Jamie and I discuss the reason why he's taking on these challenges, the logistics of these challenges, and how taking on big physical challenges can really help you develop and grow outside of your comfort zone. I've included the Nothing Ventured website in our show notes because you can donate to this amazing cause there. As always, please follow and subscribe to The Progress Theory via our Instagram channel, our YouTube channel, and also wherever you download your podcasts. And while you're there, check out all of our other content. Here is Jamie Carr. Jamie, welcome to the Progress Theory podcast. How are we?
Very good, Phil. How are you?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. Thank you so much for coming onto the show. Steph Lazarchuk, who was a guest on the Progress Theory a few weeks ago with a podcast on her hamstring research, put you in touch with me. She just pretty much sent an email saying, you need to speak to this guy. And then, so I did, and we've been chatting since, and you're doing some amazing things. And I thought you were the perfect guest for this podcast. So I won't hold back. Jamie, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I'm obviously Irish with the dodgy accent. I'm from Dublin, Ireland. I'm 29 years old, and I've come from a football sort of household growing up. I'm a football coach now at Manchester City, and I've got a couple of crazy challenges coming up that we're going to thrash out today and go through. But yeah, thanks a million to Steph for putting us in touch. We always laugh because Steph has never seen hamstrings as bad as mine in her time in football. So yeah, that's how the introduction came out, I suppose.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about this project you're about to embark on. Like, it just sounds, first of all, I need to highlight that I'm incredibly jealous, and I'll be trying to take notes on everything that you say today, just in case I want to do something similar. But yeah, tell us a little bit. It's the Nothing Ventured campaign, isn't it?
Yeah, so the Nothing Ventured campaign is something I set up about 8 months ago, I suppose, when I started to get the ball rolling on it. But it's been something I've been working on for a long time. I've been planning it for years, really. I've just never known when I was going to do it. So essentially, it's 2 challenges that I'm going to be taking in 2022. So the first one is the Marathon des Sables, which is a self-supported multi-day ultramarathon in the Sahara Desert. And then the second one is the real crazy one, which is the solo Atlantic row in December 2022. So that's when it goes a little bit crazy.
Definitely. What's the background for this challenge? You said you've known for a while you've wanted to do this. Is there like a charity reason or just like a personal reason why you're doing this challenge?
I suppose it's a bit of both, really. I'm trying to raise £50,000 for 2 children's charities, one in the UK and one in Ireland, which is very important to me. And that's a big driver. The other side of it is my personal reasons, really. I love doing these sort of things. I love doing these challenges. And ever since I finished playing football, I suppose, I've been searching for a purpose and something to spark you in the mornings when you get up. And I found challenge to be exactly that. So I've done some smaller things over the years, marathons, mountains, a few mountains as well. And now I'm just sort of, I've always had this in my mind, and I've always said, I'll do it one day. And it's very difficult when you work in football because you're limited with how much time you can get off. And COVID came about, and it kind of was a bit of a realization that there is literally no better time than now, and who knows what's around the corner. So I kind of grasped that time and said, right, let's make this happen. And here we are.
Yeah, definitely. What mountains have you climbed? Like, it sounds like you've been pushing yourself quite a lot already. So this is the next step.
This definitely isn't the next step. I've done Kilimanjaro, which is basically a 7-day walk, which you've done. I saw on your Instagram you've done as well.
Yeah.
And then the plan was to do Mount Elbrus, which is the biggest mountain in Europe, before doing some others. However, COVID literally crashed that. I had that booked and ready to go with it two months before it fell through. So it was a nightmare.
Elbrus is
but
amazing. I've done Elbrus as well.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. Yeah. It looks unbelievable. The views and stuff look amazing, and it's a tough summit day, I've heard. So I was looking forward to that. But yeah, so and then I've always had things written down that I want to do before I'm 30, want to do before I'm 40. And then I sort of said these are the two main ones I wanted to do, and if I amalgamate them both and make a big sort of campaign out of it, I'll be able to hopefully raise a lot of money, which, like I said, is quite important to me. So yeah, that's how it sort of came about, and. Like I said, COVID was a big realization, and it got the ball rolling, and sort of 12 months work has got me to where it is now, which is the start of a campaign, and with the events being 8 months away for the Marathon des Sables, and then you're looking at probably 16 to 18 months for the Atlantic Row, which requires a lot of preparation for that. So going to be a big 2022.
Yeah, of course. What are the children's charities? It would be great to put the link in the show notes and we can try and help you raise that money.
Yeah, so the Cancer Fund for Children is a therapeutic short break centre in Northern Ireland that helps kids with cancer and their families during a really tough period of treatment, etc. And it's like a little getaway for them. So they're building a second facility in Southern Ireland, in the west, the west of Ireland. I'm from Dublin, but it's Southern Ireland. And Rory McIlroy's donated a lot of money towards this building facility that they're building. And I'm raising money towards that facility to hopefully create something that's going to be there for a long time and help a lot of children, bring a little bit of a smile to their faces anyway.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the second charity is City in the Community. So it's Man City's community foundation. And they're launching a new mental health program called City Thrive on the back of COVID. To help children that are struggling with mental health issues, etc. So I can obviously, I work with children every day. I understand how much of a toll this has taken on them. Like, it's hard for me to get my head around my sort of dreams and aspirations getting affected by COVID. But literally for children, it must be so much harder. Like, I can't really comprehend how hard it must have been for them. So I just thought it'd be a really good initiative as well to support. So yeah, the money's going to be split 50-50 between those two charities.
Yeah. Because you are a football coach at Man City, that's right?
Yeah, so I'm the under-14s coach at Man City. Before that, I worked at Reading Football Club. But yeah, I've been at City now 3 seasons, so I'm just starting my 4th season now. Yeah.
And you really seen the effect of COVID and the lockdown on these kids? Like, is it really, really noticeable? Like, that's such a influential time in someone's life, isn't it?
Yeah, and particularly when you're working towards something like these boys are aspiring to be footballers, where it's capped. You can only be a certain age being a footballer, I suppose. So every year that you miss is a development year. So I've seen certainly the effect on them, but also this has a huge effect on the wider population as well. You see teenagers that just haven't been in school, haven't been around their friends, and look, it's caused all sorts of effects, which we all are very aware of. So if there's anything I can do to support, I just think it's such a brilliant cause as well.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely amazing. I think it's so easy to just look at everything and think, oh, we'll get through this. Yes, we're in lockdown. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but we'll get through it. But it's only until afterwards where you really look back and just see how much it actually affected you and how much of a big portion of life it's taken away in a way. So when it's during such an influential time, like when you're 13, 14, like that must be so difficult. Like, I've seen it in people that are doing their university degrees, their A-levels. That particular time is so key. So yeah, the work you're doing is absolutely amazing to try and help them through that. It's so cool to see. With your challenge, right? Why Marathon des Sables and why the row?
Good question. I've always been obsessed with these races since I saw them on documentaries on the Discovery Channel, literally years and years ago. I remember sitting on the couch with my mum watching these programs, and ever since then I've been like, I am doing that. As life goes, I haven't been able to pinpoint when I'm going to do it. Like I said, working in football is very restrictive in terms of being able to have the time to do these things. So it was always just I was always thinking, right, if I ever get sacked one day in football or I have a period of time off, it's going to be perfect. I'm going to do it. But who knows when that's going to happen? So, yeah, the MDS, I'm just fascinated by the sort of adventure side of it, really. Like, I have no interest in running another road marathon. I just couldn't be bothered. Like, I've done one and I'm like, I never want to do that again. My most recent marathon was in the hills and I enjoyed that so much more. And with weight in your back, it's just added an extra dimension and a little bit more crazy. So yeah, the adventure side of the MDS, where you're self-supported, where you carry everything you need to survive on your back. You're in a desert, which everyone knows running on sand is incredibly difficult. You're climbing up Jables and up and down these huge sand dunes. And then sleeping in a tent, which is literally a sheet over a few sticks with 6 random people you've never met before. That's the adventure side of it that I'm like, yeah, I like the idea of that.
That could be, for someone else, that could be someone else's nightmare, couldn't it? Whereas I completely understand where you're coming from. It's that something that people wouldn't do, that's so far out of a lot of people's comfort zones. You're like, yeah, I want to go there.
100%, 100%.
And what about the row?
Yeah, again, I was doing a Premier League coaching course about 5 years ago, and there was a sports psychologist came on to speak about the work he'd done with a team of 4 women that were going to row the Pacific Ocean, and they had a documentary out. So I went home that night, watched the documentary, and I was just like, oh my God, that looks horrific, like horrific. And a tiny little 7-meter rowing boat for months with like not seeing anyone, no contact from the outside world. They were a team of 4, so it was quite hard. And I was just like, wow, that looks really, really cool. Never ever thinking that I'd do that. At that stage, I was like, amazing. Don't think it's possible for someone like me. I've no experience of the sea. I'm not a sailor, no maritime experience. So probably not something I'll ever do, but it is amazing. And then as the years went on, I started to follow a race called the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. And I started to see that random people who are like me, no maritime experience, with a solid base of training, can actually do this. So I followed a guy called Damien Brown on Instagram, and he put up daily updates of his Atlantic crossing. And I was just fascinated by that. Like, he went solo, and I was like, that is literally so tough. That is as tough as it gets. And I was like, that I'm starting to believe now that I could maybe do it at this stage. And that was about 3 or 4 years ago, 3 years ago maybe. And ever since then, I've just kept on track, watching the race, said I'm going to do it then, committed to it. And then it was like, when are you going to do it? And like I said, COVID came about, and I was like, right, the time is now.
I'm starting to get a feel of how you think. So you listened to this talk, saw this documentary of the 4 rowers, thought that looks horrendous, that looks so tough. And that's got to a point where you're going to do the same thing that looked really tough, but on your own.
Yeah, exactly. I'm quite impulsive. So when I commit to something, I'm like, I'm all in. When I'm motivated to do something, I will literally go for it. And that's how it's kind of snowballed now quite quickly, and here we are.
Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely going to check. I'm aware of the Talisker race, but I'm going to definitely look into it with a bit more detail, I think. I've definitely got 1 or 2 friends that want to do it as well. So maybe I should watch the documentary first. I have not seen that.
Yeah, there's loads on Amazon Prime at the moment that you can see, and there's loads of books out and stuff. And James Cracknell did it. And he, with Ben Fogle, and they wrote a book about it. They did it as a pair, so it's quite interesting. And originally, I thought I'm not capable of doing this on my own because of my limited knowledge. So I was thinking I'll probably end up doing it as a team. And then I kind of thought, I know myself, if I did this as a team, in 5-10 years' time, I'd want to do it again solo. And actually, having researched it, there's a lot of people that I've spoken to that did it as a team that are now coming back to do it solo. And I'm like, I'm so glad I just made the decision to do it solo, because I don't think it's something you want to do twice.
Yeah, no, definitely. Regarding the 2 challenges, what are the logistics with them? Like, I'm assuming you've got to commandeer a boat for the row. Are there specific training or courses or qualifications you need to get as you train leading up to it? For anyone that might be interested in doing a challenge that's similar, what kind of logistical things have you had to go through to set this up?
There's huge logistical stuff to go on in regards to the row. That's why a campaign takes so long. You have to start planning 2 years out, really.
Wow.
So things like getting the boat is the big one. And these things are not cheap. They're very expensive, particularly if you're buying a brand new one. The good thing is, though, they hold their value quite well, particularly when they've done a crossing. So the resale value is quite high, which for me, all that money on the resale value is going straight to the charities, which is important as well. But yeah, there's the boat you have to do. I think it's either 120 or 150 mandatory training hours on the water, on the sea. So that takes, when you think about that, it's not just a few weekends here and there. That's a lot. You have to do a number of mandatory training courses as well, like sea survival, sea first aid, etc. The reason you really enter this race is because it's safe. It's got a really good safety record, and it's expensive to enter, but because of all the checks and they're so focused on safety and ensuring that it's a safe race that it is expensive, but they make sure that you're well covered for most eventualities.
It definitely sounds necessary, doesn't it? It's weird to hear that, actually, because you'd assume you're on your own in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. That inherently just sounds quite dangerous. But it really does sound like you are well looked after during such an event. Yeah,
so everyone asks me, will there be people out there with you? And the answer is no, there won't. Like, there is a safety yacht that goes and follows the fleet, but the team of 4s and 5s will probably be miles and miles ahead of me. So if the safety yacht is up maybe at the middle of the pack or near the front, it could be 7 days, 8 days away from me at any stage. Wow. So that safety yacht's basically, it's not much good. The main thing they do give you is all the other safety devices, such as like your EPIRB, which is your positioning device in case something happened, which would obviously trigger help from the nearest shipping vessel, etc. Or if you needed it, you obviously have your lifeboat, loads of grab bags, loads of safety equipment that gives you every chance, I suppose, if the worst did happen. But like I said, their safety record is really, really good. So they've had a few incidents over the years. The most recent one, the most scary one for me, really, is last year they had a lot of marlin strikes. So a marlin's like a fish with a big, huge beak. Yeah. But last year, I think they had 3 marlin strikes where the beak would actually come through the boat, and people were sleeping and these things were flying through the boat, and there's a hole in your boat then. So this year they've added a rule where you have to have like a Kevlar sort of a Kevlar sheet below where you sleep, just in case these marlin strikes. So they're always, as soon as something comes up, this race is very well prepared, and they're trying to think of how we can make it safer. But there's all sorts of crazy things like that.
You just wouldn't think that would be a safety issue. You think, what happens if there was waves which capsize the vessel, all of that sort of thing. Not that you're going to get attacked by a number of different fish while you're sleeping in the boat.
Exactly. So, yeah. But in terms of the waves and the capsize, that is something that does tend to happen across the journey. So these boats are designed especially so that they self-right, so that as long as you've done everything right in terms of your roles and responsibilities of keeping the cabin door shut, when it flips, it should just self-right. And if you're out at the time, you need to always be clipped on, which I'm sure we'll touch on a bit later. But like everything is there as long as you do your bit.
Yeah. Follow your checklist. Make sure that you follow it to the T. Yeah,
exactly. And that's one of the big things I'm training at the moment. There's the physical training, and then there's also the other side of the training, which is, for me, discipline. Yeah. It's probably one of my weaknesses in life. I'm the type of guy, I just got back from holidays actually the other day. I'm the type of guy that would leave the suitcase there half unpacked, like not fully thrown in the washing machine. That's me. So a big thing I'm focusing on over this preparation period is just ensuring that I don't leave crumbs. I do everything right, because it's not just a little thing here or there. These little things become big things out there, and like it's life or death. If I don't clip on and there's a wave, I'm gone. There's no getting back on the boat. If I leave the cabin door open and water gets in, it's not going to self-right. So all these small things in day-to-day life that I'm usually pretty poor at, I need to make sure that I'm sort of nailing now over the next 18 months in preparation for sort of life or death.
Yeah, no, certainly. I guess if there's the life or death situation, you pay a bit more attention, don't you? You automatically
hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But like, as well as anyone, when you're tired, are you still able to make those decisions? Or are you going to go, oh, it should be all right? Like, I've heard lots of stories of the rowers after a tough day that they don't quite tie their oars down at night properly. If they've had a really tough day, they go into the cabin, they wake up next morning, oh, it's fine. They do that for 5 or 10 days. And then on the 11th day, there's a big storm. They wake up and their oar's gone because they haven't lashed it down properly. Yeah. And then you're now like, I've got 2 more oars left for the whole crossing. If one breaks, I'm dead, basically. Not actually dead, but you get rescued because you cannot row with 1 oar, can you? So it's all those small little things. Yeah, it's all those small little things that it's a big part of my training, really, the training discipline. And that's something I'm focusing on.
Mm. Are there any logistical issues for the Marathon des Sables? I mean, obviously, long distances, 5 days in a row, through immense temperatures. While you don't need to commandeer a boat and do all of that sort of thing, there must be quite a few logistical things that you've had to put in place to get ready for that event as well.
Yeah, I suppose like getting your nutrition right and your hydration right and having a plan in place for that, even when you're in those moments of real tiredness and suffering. Like day 4, the MDS is a long day where you do double marathon. And you tend to get back in the middle of the night and you're just absolutely shattered and you just lie down. But all the people that have done this right have said that you still need to hydrate at that time. You still need to look after your feet, because if you don't, you've still got 2 more marathons to run or another marathon to run the next day. So the MDS, there isn't as many logistics. It's a much cheaper race. More or less anyone can go and enter that. You have to get your heart checked and stuff. But yeah, like I said, anyone can really enter that. But I'm not underestimating that. That race is going to be very, very hard for me, particularly in the heat. Like I was away running last week in like 27, 28 degrees. And like it has a noticeable effect even at that heat, never mind 50 degrees or whatever it could be.
Yeah. Funny enough, we actually have Dr. Becky Neal coming on the Progress Theory in a few weeks' time to talk about training in the heat. So definitely pay attention to that episode, I think. Yeah,
100%. I'll get the notebook out for that one.
Yeah. What are you doing for foot care? Because that is something I've seen on Amazon Prime. I think it was 3 brothers that did the Marathon des Sables, and it followed them through the event. And the thing that they kept saying, or it kept coming up on the show, was how wrecked everyone's feet were. And I'm guessing that, you've got to find some way to avoid as much sand getting into your shoe as possible. The fact that you're on your feet for possibly 18 hours, especially on that day 4, like your feet must just get wrecked. And as soon as your feet go, you can't run. So what kind of foot care do you think you will be doing? Or is there something you're doing now in preparation?
Well, they say that the 2 big things that stop people completing the MDS, the first one is dehydration, the second one is foot care. So they're both equally as important, really.
Yeah.
Just for people to understand it, I suppose you have your trainer, your runner, your shoe, I suppose, and then you have a gaiter that goes around it, and that's fixed to your shoe. So that's ideally there to keep the sand out. But everyone that's ever been to the beach will understand that you cannot keep sand out of everywhere. Sand ends up everywhere, especially in a desert. So as soon as the sand gets inside your shoe, I suppose, then you have the heat, the sweat, and the movement equates to friction, and you're in trouble. The best advice I've heard so far is as soon as you feel those little bits of discomfort in your feet is to treat them there and then. Don't wait. If you wait, you're in big trouble, because a lot of people say, oh, just grizz it out, just push yourself, get through it. But in fact, I think that's just stupid in those moments. In those moments, you need to be sensible rather than just being a lunatic. So taking 5 minutes to sort your shoe out, empty it, make sure it's right, is probably invaluable. And then long term, I think people have said try and avoid water and wetting your feet up to 2 weeks before the race, just because it softens your foot. So you need to try and harden the skin, I suppose, in preparation. So I have to look into that further, but that's something I might explore. And then just trying to wear the most comfortable shoe. Don't be changing my shoes. Like it's very easy to go, oh, what's the best shoe for peak performance for someone like me? But actually, it's all about comfort here, rather than peak performance, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because the MDS, you don't run the whole thing. On those big hills, you're walking. When it's 50 degrees, there's parts of it you're going to be walking. It's a walk-run event. So
yeah. It's a get to from A to B as safely as possible type of event.
Yeah, exactly. Especially for someone I'm not much of a runner. Like, but back when I was playing football, I was a centre half, so I was the one that stood at the back and didn't have to do an awful lot. So even just one marathon for me is hard. So 6 back to back, it's going to be tough.
Do you have to carry all of your food, water from day to day?
Yeah, so all your food, your clothing, your sleeping bag, whatever you need for the 6 days, you have to have on your back. The only thing that they give you at checkpoints is water, which you then carry yourself.
That's nice.
Every sort of 15 kilometers or so. So, yeah, and people doing the MTS are paranoid about weight, and they like cut down on the amount of food. They cut the straps off their bags just to save weight. They cut their toothbrush in half. They do all these things to save weight. But I'm a big foodie, so food is huge to me. Like after a marathon, I'm going to want to eat and refuel. So I'm kind of playing around in my head with how much is my pack going to weigh. It's probably going to be something like 12 kilos, whereas they recommend no more than like 8, 9. But I know the importance to food is to my morale. Like if I want to keep going, I want to know that I have something there to look forward to, I suppose.
Yeah.
The other thing is they give you a tent, but when I say tent, it's not a tent. It's basically a Berber tribal tent, which is basically a few sticks, and then there's a sheet over it and an old rug on the floor. But like the sides are open, any wind or like I've heard of scorpions like coming in and stuff like that during the night, and people getting stung by those. So yeah, it's fairly exposed.
Are they deadly, the scorpions they have there, or is it just an inconvenience?
Oh yeah, no. Part of the kit that you have to carry is a venom pump. So it's been known that there's snakes around, obviously in the desert, and then scorpions. I think more people have been bitten by those than spiders. But on day 4, when you're obviously doing the second marathon of that day and you're going through the night, I think they're nocturnal. So like that's when you're. I'll certainly have the head torch on, scanning around. Hopefully, if I can still function properly at that stage.
If it wasn't hard enough, you've now got to dodge snakes, scorpions, and whatever with your pump ready.
Yeah.
The more and more we talk about this, more and more things are just coming up that are obstacles.
There's a million reasons not to do this.
Yeah. So what about the training that you're doing for this? So you're doing the run first and then you're doing the row. So I'm guessing you're in your running training at the moment. What kind of stuff are you doing for it?
Yeah, so I started training about 7 months ago now. And for the first 6 months, it was more so just building up a base of strength, improving my mobility, learning to row. That was sort of where I started. And I'm working with a guy called Gus Barton, who's a PT who has done one ocean row and one rowing around the UK. But he's also done a couple of ultra marathons. So I thought he'd be a perfect sort of person to pull my training plan and program together. And the big thing that he sort of taught me at the moment is like, you don't need to thrash yourself. This is about staying injury free over a long period to make sure you can peak at the end. Because for me, I was used to doing CrossFit for the last sort of 18 months, and I was literally thrash yourself every day. And that's just not a solid way for me to train, I think, for something like this. So being more specific, I had a big block on sort of rowing and learning to row at the start, and now I'm sort of moving more towards the run, trying to build up that aerobic base, I suppose. And then down the line, I think that's going to result in things like adding hills in, adding back-to-back day running, as well as with a pack, and then also just like time on feet, so walk runs over a long weekend and stuff like that.
Yeah. Sounds like the guy you're working with kind of knows his stuff. Like making sure you're injury free is the main thing. As soon as you're injured, you can't train properly. And the thing that's going to improve you is training. So if you can't train, you're not going to get better. So That's a really good philosophy to keep to. And I'm glad you've moved away from the thrashing yourself at CrossFit before doing stuff that's more specific to your goals.
Yeah, 100%. And it's kind of hard as well because you want to push yourself every day in preparation for like mental hell that's coming. But sometimes you need to understand that there's a bigger picture. And for me at the moment, that rowing machine is hell anyway. So I'm still getting that.
Yeah, it can be not fun at times, can't it?
Yeah, well, honestly, for the first 3 months, if I got past 12 minutes on the rowing machine, my bum would just go numb on both sides. Like I literally could not feel my whole legs. So I'm only now starting to get to the stage where I can row for like an hour without like that, which is just horrific because you try and stand up and you're just like, I've never walked before. You're just all over the place. It's crazy.
Yeah. It shows just how your body needs to adapt to, isn't like, oh, it's a new form of training. Like your body's just repetitively going through different motions that you're not used to. At least with running, it's relatively similar to walking and you do run in everyday life. Whereas the actual skill of rowing, you don't do anywhere else apart from on the rower or on a boat. So being comfortable on that for a long period of time is so difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, apparently training on a rowing machine, which I have there behind me, is so different to ocean rowing on an actual boat. Like it's so different. But it's the closest thing to prepare yourself to actually before then training on water. But I've never seen an ocean rowing boat yet. I've never even like been on one, or I've never rowed in my life. So this was the very start. And then hopefully when I get my boat, I'll be able to get the actual proper specific training in and actually feel what it is like on the body when you're training on the water.
Yeah.
Because they say like at times there'll be a wave breaking from this side. You have to stabilize with this arm and then you're rowing with one arm. So it is training. You have to train the body for all that sort of stuff, the twisting and turning, I suppose, of that as well. But you guys will know a hell of a lot more about that than me. That's why I'm relying on Gus to sort of do all the training for me and make sure that's programmed specifically and right.
Do you think these challenges are going to be more physical or more mental for you? And the reason I'm asking that question is that I wanted to get into a bit more detail around your mindset when it comes to doing these challenges. Because I can imagine, being excited, maybe a little bit apprehensive before doing it. But when you're there, like it's such a big mental component to push you to keep going. What's your kind of mindset approach to your big challenges? Seeing as you've done big challenges before, these are bigger. But what do you think your mindset will be for these challenges?
Well, the row is 100% mental, more or less. Like you need to condition your body to be injury free and like robust, but then it's all mental. So how do you prepare for that $1 million question? For me, in the past, when I've done like tough things, the toughest thing for me was probably the weighted marathon in the hills. It's just sort of like preparing that you and accepting that pain is coming, like this is going to hurt. But for me, it's kind of like I ask myself, am I willing to get injured to get through this? And if I say yes, that means I'm fully committed. I'm all in here. And it's more or less then about just getting it done. It's not about like if, it's like this is getting done, whether you're crawling, walking or not. And you'll get that sense of satisfaction afterwards that I really, really love. And that's why I do these things, for that sort of the rewards that come afterwards. So it's kind of like flicking that switch in your head. That's like, it's coming, get ready for it, and accept.
Accept. That's a really good way of thinking about it. Because when everyone talks about mindset, they talk about the approach to it, like before they do it. And sometimes they talk about that voice in their head that may be telling them to stop. But if you've already accepted what's to come, surely that voice in your head telling you to stop wouldn't be there because you've accepted it already. That voice telling you, stop, it hurts, doesn't exist because you've accepted it's going to hurt already.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that people often overlook is the training. You have this every week. The training is horrible. Like for a marathon, spending 4 hours out in the roads or whatever, like you have those voices in your head all the time during that as well. So it's not just the event. You have to accept in training is going to feel terrible as well.
Say someone wants to do a big challenge themselves. They want to push themselves outside of their perceived comfort zone. What would your recommendation be for anyone that wants to do a big challenge? Is it just go for it, or maybe try smaller things or work your way up? What, based on your experiences, what would you say for someone that wants to push themselves just that little bit more?
I think, like, as human beings, we're our own worst enemy, and understanding that our heads and our voices in our heads are going to probably talk us out of things a lot quicker than they'll talk us into things. So like we often find reasons why not to do things rather than finding reasons to do things. So especially when they're hard. So for me, this row especially, I could think of a million reasons why I'm not cut out to do this. But I think having the courage to try is probably the most underrated thing in life. I think people all over the world, I think we're often scared of doing things, and our minds often rule us out of doing things that we're actually capable of. And I have a big fear of looking back and going, oh, I wish I'd done that. I wish I'd done that. So, and look, as human beings, we all see people in either work scenarios or in these challenges going, how did he do that? Or how did she do that? Thinking like, well, actually, she did that or he did that because they had the courage to try and they put in a hell of a lot of work. So there's no sort of magic formula other than my best way of doing it is I research the hell out of it, ask people who have done these events previously, and then I prepare myself to do things that I won't enjoy and probably that most others won't do.
That's some great recommendations there. Ask lots of questions and just accept you're not going to enjoy it, but that buzz at the end is going to be euphoric.
Exactly. When you're sitting on the couch with your feet up, having dominoes, that's when you can be proud of yourself.
It's always a dominoes, isn't it? As soon as the bigger and bigger the challenge gets, what are you going to eat afterwards? Well, it's pretty big, so dominoes, obviously. It's never like I'm going to go for a curry. Curry is just something you do with your friends. But if it's a big challenge, what are you eating afterwards? Dominoes. Yep.
Spot on. Exactly that.
I just want to kind of finish up with asking if you've thought about after the Nothing Ventured campaign. And the reason I'm asking that is because you said you'd created a bit of a bucket list. Now, you might not want to say what's on your bucket list, but to me that says, you've actually thought a bit more about, what you want to achieve. This is a small part on how you push yourself. Is there, have you had a little think about what's happening after the Nothing Ventured campaign?
Yeah, 100%. I have a list, like you said. The big one for me probably will be Denali.
Cool.
You'll probably know about that. It's part of the 7 summits. Yeah, I'd love to do that. I might have to do Elbrus first, just to get a little bit more experience on snow on mountains and stuff. But I love mountains because I'm so scared of heights. Like, I'm really scared of heights. Like, I did Crib Goch in Snowdon maybe a year ago, and I was petrified up there on my own, I must say. Have you ever done it?
Yeah, I've done it, and it gets proper windy there, and you're like walking across something that's a knife edge, isn't it? And you could easily just get blasted over by wind, and then you're falling like a kilometre down, aren't you?
So I was doing it on my own. I didn't have a guide, or I didn't know where I was going. So that was the big thing that was scaring me. I'm like, am I going to get to a stage where I cannot move forward or back? But yeah, so eventually got through that. So mountains are definitely on my list. There's something euphoric about when you get to the top, and you're just like,
it's
wow.
Addictive.
For me, it's actually it's not even getting to the top. It's like 100 meters below when you're going to make it. Like on Killy, I wasn't buzzed up when I got to the top. When I got to the little bit just below, I can't remember what it's called. That was where it hit me. I was like, oh, this is amazing. You're watching sunrise and you can see the curvature of the earth. And that's the feeling you get when you're there is just like, wow, this is incredible. So Denali's definitely on my list. And then I'd love to go to the Himalayas and stuff, but I don't think I have any interest in Everest.
Okay.
Do you?
I do. We had Adri Brownlee on. We recorded with Adri Brownlee just the other day, and she's just got back from climbing Everest. And the stories that she was telling about her time there, her time trying to attempt K2 as well, just absolutely crazy. There's something different when you go above 8,000 meters. But even then, I'm just like, because I've been to Everest Base Camp and I've seen it, so you get that summit fever where I want to go up there.
Yeah.
But I know that some of the dangerous bits are just below the summit. You've got the Khumbu Icefall, which you've got to navigate it at night, because during the day it melts and then it sort of breaks. So you obviously don't want to do then. So that's a particularly dangerous part. So you're staring at something that is incredibly dangerous, but still there's something that comes over you and you just want to go, yeah, I want to do that. So I'd love to do Everest. Unfortunately, I don't have 50 grand on me to do that, but never know. If I enter the lottery, maybe, I don't know. We'll have to think of that in the future. But Denali would be great. I've heard Denali is difficult because of the weather. I think, so that brings with it a new challenge because the weather is particularly bad. But Mount Vinson, Antarctica, that would be wicked. But again, I don't have like 60 grand. But I'm with you. Something about mountains. And I know exactly what you're talking about when you discuss that last bit when summiting Kilimanjaro.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. But yeah, some of those 7 summits look very ropey, especially the one in Indonesia. Is it Indonesia, the one where it's the most technical one? That looks crazy. You have to walk, or you have to go across the is it like a wire or something like that?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of it.
I can't remember the name. I should know. But I remember reading an account of it, and you've got to like trek in the jungle for like a month before you get to the actual climb and the technical climb. And it's just, that hot, humid wetness that you've got to live in for a month, which makes it one of the most difficult ascents. And you haven't even got to the ascent bit yet.
Yeah, it's amazing. The problem with mountains is they're just so expensive. Like, it's a rich man's sport, really, to be honest. And the thing is, imagine going to Everest paying 50 grand and then the weather, there's no weather window, or you're just not, like, it didn't come around. Like, I don't know how it works, but I'd be devastated.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. All that money. And you'd probably be able to see it and then, no, we've got to go down. Otherwise, you could die.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Great.
Yeah. But you don't mess around on that thing, I'd say. You take the advice of those guys for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Right, Jamie, that was absolutely incredible. Again, I'm incredibly jealous, and I'm going to be looking into these challenges even more myself. Like, I'm so jealous. It looks amazing, and I think what you're doing for those charities is absolutely incredible as well. Just to finish off, how can anyone follow your campaign? Is it on Twitter, Instagram? How can we follow and maybe donate to the charities and this campaign as well?
Yeah, Instagram's probably the best platform to follow me on. That's where I'll probably be most active. So I'm sure you'll add it or tag it into the program notes and stuff on this. Yeah. So you'll find there, Nothing Venture Campaign. And then I've got a website, which the bio's in the Instagram, that if anyone can donate, it would be amazing. It's for a great cause. But yeah, Phil, I look forward to getting you out for a training row when I get my boat.
Absolutely. You've got to invite me along. Definitely. As a final question, 100%. Actually, we ask this to all of our guests. If you had to pick a guest to be on the Progress Theory, who would you choose? And it could be anyone, but I can imagine you choosing some like incredible adventurer or like a really interesting guest. You can choose anyone, alive or dead.
David Goggins has to be up there. I love him. I think Goggins. It cracks me up. He's so funny. But Matthew McConaughey's up there as well. I think he would have some fascinating stories. I think I'll probably have to.
Need to listen to.
I'll probably have to go with Goggins because I listen to his book every night. So,
do you have that playing while you are, training for these events?
No, I try not to use earphones when I'm training. So on the runs and the rows, I just do without that because I need to prepare for not having them. Yeah. So, Makes sense. No, I use Goggins to put me to sleep. So most nights, whenever I can't sleep, just throw him on, and within an hour I'll be gone. Really? Yeah. That's quite impressive. I've listened to the book about 15 times.
Yeah. I can imagine me listening to Goggins just before going to bed, and all of a sudden I want to go train, even if it's like 11 p.m. or something like that. I'd just be wired.
That's probably why I don't sleep very well at the moment.
Oh, wicked. Anyways, Jamie, thank you so much for that. And everyone, check out Jamie's Instagram, his website, and if you can donate, that would be amazing as well. Jamie, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Phil.